All right, well, we'll call to order the April 2nd, 2020 business meeting. And I'd ask the County Administrator, Gary Schmidt, to please take the roll.
Thank you, Chair. First, our staff support today is Kevin Moss, Clerk to the Board, and Stephen Madcore, County Counsel. Roll call, Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Chair Bernard.
Here. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one
nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Got the flag up. Good job. We're obviously holding this meeting virtually. If you're joining us on Zoom app for this meeting and you are interested in providing public comment, we'll prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. We'll have the option of providing your comments to us live, or alternatively, anyone can send a comment to be read during the citizen communication portion, appropriate comments of the meeting over email. Just send it to us at ClackCo news@clackamas.us. That's CLACKCO news@clackamas.us. Be sure to include your name and area where you're from in your email. And up first is Gary what?
Yes, Commissioners, we will have a COVID-19 update. Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management and the Incident Commander for our Emergency Operations Center, will lead the discussion.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you. So just to run down our numbers for here today, we have Clackamas County has 54 positives in the county. Multnomah County has 131 and Washington County has 185. Statewide, we have 167, statewide we have 736 that are positive. 167 of those have been hospitalized or are hospitalized. Clackamas County has 3 deaths, and then the statewide there are 19 deaths. So it was kind of Christmas here today because we got in a shipment from Oregon Emergency Management that has some of the PPE in it, which is a personal protective equipment. We didn't know it was coming, so we did accept the shipment, and it's actually being inventoried as we speak right now. So hopefully we've gotten a few more things in. I know we did get more gowns in, for example, where we had very, very few. So that's going to help us move some things forward here. Our Human Services branch is working to make sure that some of the food insecurities that are happening across the county are going to be taken care of. So starting tomorrow, we'll be putting boxes together. And I know several commissioners are interested in that, and that will be happening. And we would definitely will provide that information to you as soon as I get everything settled and nailed down there. Okay. We are working to make sure that we have vouchers for housing for those that are vulnerable, who may need to be in quarantine for 2 weeks or until they get a test result back. We continue to work with that population, which of course is growing as we move forward. Again, we do have a lot of resource requests coming in. Until today, we had very limited supplies of several things, so we're hoping that will change. But just want to mention to everyone that as we move forward, and this is happening statewide in other states, we simply don't have enough to keep up with the demand. But we are doing the best we can to be equitable, understanding what the needs are and why the need is there, and getting things out that we can. Yeah, we just have some, I mean, everyone has concern about not having everything that we need. The state has also ordered more from the Strategic National Stockpile. As far as I know, that it has not been received by the state yet, but from what I understand, when it is received, break it down. use the formula to get it out to the counties, and we should get it pretty quickly after it is received at the state level. And we are expanding our operations branch, which is now going to be including behavioral health, as well as a liaison that is going to be working for or working with the communities here that are underserved communities or non-English speaking, et cetera. So we're going to be expanding that to make sure that we're reaching the entire population, giving them good information, and being able to answer their questions. And that is my update for today from the EOC.
Thank you, Nancy. Are you going to be on our strategy call?
Yes.
Good. Great.
Okay.
Just going to check. Gary, did you have something to add?
Only if there's any questions for the board, from the board, and then I do have a quick update after that.
I
Chair
saw
Bernard,
Ken.
Commissioner.
Yes.
So I had a question.
Nancy, would you email us that report, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Martha?
Yeah, I just got off a phone call, which I'll talk about during Commissioner communication. Nancy, what specifically are we doing for our business community in terms of helping them weather the closures that they're experiencing, the liquidity problems, unemployment? Can you?
Yeah, so we do have a branch here in the Emergency Operations Center, and it's mostly our business and community services individuals that are working with that. So we do have where our business community can send them emails and questions through a system, and they also have a phone number that they can call, which is on our website, which is clackamas.us/coronavirus. And they're helping them through those questions that you're discussing or are asking about. They're helping them if they want to apply for SBA loans. They're helping them through that process as well. They are giving them, and we do have advice on our website too. It talks about how do you make sure you have things that are clean. How do you, there's a lot of money out there too for different areas of business, and trying to make sure that they're connected to the right site or the needs that they have specifically.
Okay, so it's mostly information sharing at this point.
It is information sharing. I'm not sure, we don't have, of course, funding right now to help them directly, but we definitely are trying to make sure they can get connected in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we have a question from Commissioner Fisher.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for everything that you have been doing. I know this has been quite the long haul. And I know we're going to be at it for quite some time, so really important to pace ourselves. Your calming presence is always wonderful when you do participate in our meetings. Thank you. So a question that I have, I was looking through my emails this morning, and I see that one of our school districts is going to be doing 5 meals at a time for pickup for kids. Mm-hmm. And some thoughts that I had about that are concerns, of course, about child abuse, possibly children not being, not eyes on or hands on. Kids don't need to be there to get the meals. And I'm just wondering if we are looking ahead to even be a convener on any of those ways that we can strategize how to have touch points for kids during this time when we've lost our doctor's appointments for kids and we've lost the schools for kids, which is really huge. So I'm really concerned about that. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just wondering if we're doing any strategy around that.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Commissioner Fisher. We do have open communication and are checking on our schools on a regular basis to find out what they are doing. That is something that I just wrote down. We don't have a strategy for that yet, but I certainly will take that back to our ops branch and ask them to check into that and see how we can maybe do some more strategy around that. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Savas.
Oh, your mic's off, Paul.
Just wanted to mention to folks that I found that the OHA website is very informative, as well as the CDC. They actually have a special page for the COVID-19. A vast amount of information if you actually explore that. So I'm very pleased to hear. And if you look at all those websites, I've been looking at them, I look at them daily. I think, frankly, that our early action and our social distancing and all those measures that have been implemented are really taking effect. So it looks, though it's no celebration when people are ill or people are passing away, but the impacts, we may not be as severe here as in other states. So I think that our early action has been effective. And for all of you out there, our citizens in the county, heed that, recognize that the social distancing works and to continue to do it. And this is no time to be lax in that regard. I think probably the most difficult thing for a lot of people is getting your food and how to disinfect your food. Or clean your packaging and so forth. But I really believe it's working. I just want to get that message out there. If people want to understand the gravity of what other states are going through, go to those two websites to explore how other states are faring.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. And you can also get to those websites from the county website as well.
So I'd like to mention something, and you talked about our business support. You know, that's very challenging when we get 18 cents out of every dollar. And community corrections isn't being funded. The sheriff's gonna have to close some departments. And we can't possibly backfill that, but 18 cents out of the dollar. And lottery funds fund a lot of those business supports, and there is no lottery. So we're in a challenging time. Unlike Portland that has a business tax, I'm not suggesting we do that, but you know, they have monies we don't, and cities have monies we don't, because we are a county. So that makes it very challenging. Even Washington County has that program, and it's something share. Paul probably knows the name, but I remember last year, folks were looking at, could they get a piece of that? But that didn't happen. So it is very challenging for the county. And, you know, should we do something like that, we'd have to take something away from other people. And when you look at the fact that we're not getting a lot of grants, the state or federal government, or we think we may not, it's really tough. Even our tourism department, there is no tourism. So what do you do? And that's something I think in the future we need to talk about, but we can't do anything now. We're certainly not going to add any more taxes. And we haven't. So anyway, I felt it very frustrated yesterday when I heard that Portland was doing things, and I received some emails asking about what the county's going to do. And the fact is, we don't have those taxes. I mean, even if we had, even when we had urban renewal money, and we might have been able to help people around the ClackCo Town Center area, that's not there anymore. So it's really tough. The voters took that away, and anyway, it's something to look to the future, because this could be back in the fall and winter, and we have to really be prepared. If there's a positive thing here, I'd say that we've made a lot of great connections, and I know that by the fall we will have a much better system going than we have now, and hopefully federal government will step up, and they are in many areas to get funding for small businesses. I didn't know that we're doing what we did. So thank you, Nancy, for letting us know. Well, anybody else?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher has another question.
Okay.
So Jim, I was just curious, when you said we don't have lottery, what's changed with our lottery funding?
The lottery's not running. They've closed the lottery. So a lot of people are saving money because they're not gambling, but it also means that we don't have that income to help businesses.
Okay, I didn't realize that that was happening, so thank you for that clarification.
You bet. Anything else? All right, we'll move on. And the next item is,
Actually, I still have a quick update, Chair, and that
Oh.
is, Commissioners, as you know, earlier this week, you did extend the temporary closure of county buildings through Monday, April 20th. The county is still open for business, but it is open remotely. And the majority of public services can be provided online. There are some limited opportunities for the public to engage in person with the county by appointment only. And we do that by ensuring the safety of both the public and the employees. So please contact the appropriate department of where you need service from if you are a member of the public. Commissioners, as you know, we have 2,500 full-time and temporary employees here at Clackamas County, and their safety is as important as ours. And so we are doing our best to make sure they are working remotely if they can, and only employees who can only do their work on campus and they have a critical position are they on campus. But the majority of our employees are working remotely to protect their safety and the safety of the public. But I do want to remind everyone, the county is still open for business. We're just doing our business differently during this time. So that is my quick update, and unless there are any questions, then we can move on.
well, are we going to make an announcement about our various town halls during this meeting?
I'll ask Dylan to get something for us by the end of the meeting. We'll announce that, yes.
Yeah, because I know that Ken and Sonia are on today, and Paul and Martha were on the other day, and I heard you guys did a great job, so
Thank you.
thank you all very much. Gary and I are going to do one too.
Okay.
And then we talked about whether all 5 would do it, but we're still trying to figure that out. I don't see Sue on. We'll be talking about that during strategy today. So again, Paul and Martha, great job. And I haven't watched it yet because I swear I've been on 20 phone calls every night. And then Sonia and Ken, good luck today. What was the subject, Paul, of your town hall?
Ours was business, and I will say that it was a little bit odd because it was listening. It wasn't us talking so much as us listening. So a lot of the questions we didn't have answers for, but subsequent to that meeting, we were able to talk to Congressman Schrader and some other people, got some input. So we hope to have more clarity on the federal programs, the CARES Act, what that really means, hopefully by tomorrow or Monday, and have more definition around what we can do for businesses and what we can't do. But I felt the same way you did, Jim, and probably everyone else is getting those inquiries. We don't really have the resources to help backfill some of the gaps that the businesses are experiencing. So I'll talk about that later under my comments. But it was a good constructive hour. Martha and I did a great job. It seems, but it was a little bit odd at times not being able to answer the questions fully.
Thank you, Paul. Martha, did you want to add anything?
No, I'll wait for citizen,
Okay.
commissioner communication. Yeah,
All right.
I have some stuff I want to update, but we'll wait until then. Okay.
Okay.
All
So
right.
Gary, what's up next?
So I want to thank Nancy Bush. You're welcome to go if you need to. Thank you for the update, Nancy. Next, commissioners, is your consent agenda.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and County Administrator Schmidt. On today's consent agenda under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of Amendment Number 2 to the Intergovernmental Agreement HD ICA E-690-2018 with Multnomah County for the Human Immunodeficiency Virus HIV Early Intervention and Outreach. Approval of Contract Amendment Number 1 with Bateman Community Living to provide frozen meals for home delivery meal service for older adult community nutrition programs. Approval of a grant agreement with Northwest Housing Alternatives for emergency service shelters. Approval of a grant agreement with Clackamas Women's Services for emergency shelter services. Approval of a personal services agreement with Folk Time for peer support services. Approval of a professional services agreement with Kittleson and Associates to develop last mile shuttle plans for the Oregon City Shuttle, Clackamas Industrial Shuttle, West Lynn, Oregon City, Tualatin Commuter Shuttle, and the Milwaukee Industrial Shuttle. Approval of a personal services agreement with Regional Toxology Services, doing business as a coordinated health solutions for health centers drug testing services. And under your Department of Transportation Development, approval of a resolution declaring the public necessity and purpose of acquisition of rights-of-way and easements for the Dryland Road Guardrail Project and authorizing good faith negotiations and condemnation actions. Approval of a resolution declaring a public necessity and purpose of acquisition of rights-of-way easements and fee property for the Fuller Road Station project and authorizing good faith negotiations and condemnation actions. Under elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. And under Water Environment Services, approval of amendment number 1 to the agreement between Water Environment Services and CH2M Hill Engineers for engineering services for the Tri-City Water Resource Recovery Facilities, Willamette River outfall. And that concludes the consent agenda, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do any commissioners wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ken made the motion, Martha seconded. Any further discussion? Please poll the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Humbertson.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Bernard.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And what's up next is we're turning over to Dylan Blaylock, and he's going to moderate the citizen communication portion.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bernard. I'm Dylan Blaylock with Public and Government Affairs, and I'll be relaying the citizen communications for today's meeting. If any attendees, and we have 13 who are joining us right now digitally, either via Zoom or the phone, would like to provide a comment, you can do so now by utilizing the raise hand feature on Zoom. That's for both PCs and iPads. You have a raise hand button on the Zoom bar that's at the top or bottom, depending on your device. If you are on the phone, you can go ahead and hit *9, and that also will raise the hand, and I can go ahead and bring people over. I'm gonna give people just a quick second to do that. We've also got some email comments that have come in the last couple of days. But of that, I remind our audience that during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, you can always see up-to-date info on the Clackamas County alert page at www.clackamas.us/coronavirus. Okay, checking. There is one call. It is from the individual who is on the phone. Caller. And okay, and caller, you are on. Yep. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Your area.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Please give your name, area of residence, and you're allowed 3 minutes. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Johnson. I'm in Lake Oswego. I was calling. I had two questions. One, I wanted to know, I'm a 64-year-old disabled senior. I'm on SSDI, food stamps. I get partial help with my Medicare. So I want premiums. I wanted to know, one, if you have any thoughts yet on helping address people like me that were already on the cusp. I needed some form of rent assistance prior to this and have just been getting by keeping my rent paid. And I'm not alone. I'm on the 50+ advisory committee in LO, so I know other people, seniors, critically disabled seniors, have this same issue, that you need some form of housing help or a stipend. And I was wondering if this, and if you're dependent, like me, I'm dependent on other people to help me stay housed right now, and I don't know what their circumstances will be. So my situation has become even more timely, and I just wanted to see if you were looking at any partial housing stipends, you know, even if it wasn't the full amount like in traditional programs, but a 500, 800, 1,000, something for people like me. And my second question is, because I'm on food stamps, I was wondering if the county and state can somehow work together that we could have cash benefits during this crisis, which would make it easier to get whatever we needed anywhere versus the traditional, you can only buy certain items with the EBT. That's just food for thought. It would help a lot of people right now when we're not going out or different things or need to order online. Thank you.
So I assume we have her phone number, Dylan? We could maybe, go ahead, Dylan.
No, it is not. You go ahead and if you would like to go ahead and email me, then I can go ahead and relay it to whoever after the meeting chair. My email address. We don't have the chat enabled. Cynthia, my email address is d.laylock, so D Blaylock. You can also find it on a lot of the pages, the web pages of clackamascounty.com, the media section.
I think I can answer some of your questions, but the county won't be issuing stipends. That's just not, we don't have the resources to do that, but we do have assistance. And if Nancy were on the phone, I'd give you a phone number. Gary, you could have that, and she could call into our emergency operations center, and they will take her information. Do we have their number, Gary? Here.
I'm going to get it for you before you're done talking here.
Okay, so please continue watching, and we will get you that number to call our emergency operations center, and they can direct you to those resources or perhaps give you answers. But you're going to have to call there.
Chair Bernard, Commissioner Fisher has a question.
Yes, Commissioner Fisher.
Hi there. Cynthia, I really appreciate your call, and it was nice to hear your voice. Maybe we can do a Zoom call later so I could see you if you've got access to having some video on your phone. Anyway, I just want to remind folks that that Metro still has the ballot measure on the ballot, which would provide the type of assistance that Cynthia is talking about. Most of the resources, if that measure passes, will go to help those who are chronically homeless. But a quarter of them will be able to provide rent assistance for those that are on the cusp. It's an issue that we have been thinking about for quite some time. No, it's a challenge in our community, and leaders across the region have been working to make this a reality. I hope it passes. Unfortunately, for all of our elected leaders, who are the ones that would be carrying this campaign right now, we are just really too busy dealing with the frontline needs to do the type of advocacy to reach out to educate folks. So Cynthia, if you've got some time on your hands and you'd like to get involved with that, I really encourage you to volunteer for the effort for Metro's measure. But we have been thinking about it, and that's kind of where it's at right now. So thank you.
So Sonia, do you want to give her your email address maybe? Or
Cynthia, she lives in Lake Oswego. Martha and I are both, we consider her a friend, and I know that Cynthia knows how to find me. Cynthia's not on the phone anymore.
Oh.
I don't, but I have Cynthia's contacts as well. So maybe I'll just shoot her an email while we're in this.
Okay.
So thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Chair Bernard, Administrator Schmidt.
Yes, so the telephone number for our Emergency Operations Center for members of the public is 503-742-5300. Again, 503-742-5300.
So I would say that would be a good idea if we have that, put that up when we have our meetings. I don't see the number on there. But it's probably there to the right.
Right there on the right, yep.
Yeah, our pictures are over it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so there's, or the website is another option. So that's clackamas.us /coronavirus. All right, thank you. Are there more calls?
Yes, there are, Chair Bernard. Just one second. We actually have one via Zoom. The person's handle is simply Mark. So Mark, if you're there, bear with me for a second. And Mark, you're going to need to unmute yourself, and you are on. Please give your name, your area of residence, and keep your comment under 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. It's Mark Burnham from American Medical Response. And I just want to say, first of all, you guys are doing an awesome job, and I really appreciate being able to get online on Zoom and see our leaders lead. So thank you very much for that. I just wanted to make a couple comments because I know a lot of people have been seeing on the national news and things. You're seeing a lot of AMR resources in New York and across the United States. And I've had a couple phone calls from local hospitals and community people asking if we still have enough people in our area, if we're sending people all across the United States to provide care. And we do. I just want to make sure, we're fully staffed. We're doing what we're doing day to day here in Clackamas County, supporting the people that we serve here. And that how we're mostly doing that, as you've seen nationwide, there's a lot of ambulance companies that are laying people off. We are not. What we're doing is we're reallocating those resources. So if we do have a slow downturn somewhere, we're able to use those resources in other areas to help out. So we do have people who are going to Seattle. We also, as you know, are very creative in the Clackamas County area, and we have a very robust mobile health care program. So we have a lot of people doing COVID-19 screening for a bunch of our businesses to keep our Clackamas County businesses open and performing the way they need to safely, and able to screen those people for them. So it cuts down on a person who has the infection getting in and working with people, and then the company having to shut down because they've lost all their employees. So I just want to make sure and reassure the county that we're out there for you still. And again, just appreciate everything you guys do.
Ken, did you want to ask something? No? So Mark, why would ambulance companies be sending people home? Aren't you guys just swamped? I mean, you aren't sending people home, but others are.
Commissioner, it just depends. A lot of the volume that ambulance companies do is a non-emergent type volume. So if there are people who are elective surgeries, for instance, have been cut down or stopped completely. So people that we would have taken in for elective surgery and then returned home by ambulance, like a hip surgery, something where they couldn't stand, ambulate, or anything like that, those calls are all gone. So some of the smaller ambulance companies who are not as diversified don't have the resources to shift people to do things with screening and things like that. So that's what we're doing when our crews are not have the volume we normally do. We also assign them to people in our region to do testing and mobile healthcare, things like that, sir.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your call. Any other questions? All right. Well, thanks, Mark, for giving us a call. I've never heard of you.
Okay. All right, Chair Bernard, we are going to go to, I'll just send out a reminder one more time. We do have over 10 attendees. If you would like to ask a question, please utilize raise hand. But I will go ahead and relay now the comments we've received over email over the last 24 hours. The first is from Mark Schull. He's from Sandy. I will pause after each one to give commissioners time to respond if they would like to. From Mark Schull. The coronavirus is taking a toll on our pocketbooks of the families and businesses of Clackamas County. Families are facing layoffs. Businesses are closing. Property owners have been asked to give tenants a 6-month grace period to pay their rents. Some are looking at forcing small businesses to provide paid sick leave to their employees. That means property owners won't have the money they need to pay their mortgages and property taxes. Businesses will then be spending money without putting out a product. That is costly. Our people have been bombarded with new taxes, and most politicians have either supported those new taxes or were silent. Now the corona burden hits. If I were already a county commissioner, I would be looking for ways to alleviate the pain until this crisis passes by allowing taxpayers to keep more of their money in their pockets. Have you thought about extending the due date for property taxes this year? Families and business may need to have a little more time to pay this year. Have you been yelling at the governor to give back the $1.5 billion in kicker refunds this year, or about $350 for the average taxpayer? Instead of waiting to get a credit on this year's tax return, the state should send out kicker checks. I recommend you raise this issue. What can you do to recommend the first quarterly corporate activities tax, or CAT, payment due the 30th of April be delayed? Perhaps ask the governor to order the Oregon Department of Revenue to delay implementation of the CAT tax for another year. Businesses struggling to survive the virus outbreak can't afford to spend the time and money it takes to figure out this complex and uncertain tax. Can you ask Metro to pull its May 2020 ballot measure that would impose 2 new income taxes on families and businesses? Finally, have you considered holding off on your new short-term rental tax? Now is the time for you, the Board of Commissioners, to protect the people. Thank you, Mark Shull.
Just like to say we have held off on the short-term rental tax. For one thing, very few people are renting. The other thing is, yes, I've talked to the governor about the kicker. A lot of people have. There are a lot of issues here, and we haven't yet talked about delaying property taxes. The challenge there is most people pay them in their mortgages, and that is not something we have any ability to control. The other is that if we delayed that tax, then we wouldn't be able to provide the services we need to keep the county going. Law enforcement takes over 50%. What are we going to cut in the sheriff's department? What are we going to cut in our human resources? There's lots of problems with delaying property taxes. That is our only income. And without that, we cannot provide the services that people depend on to live. If we had to close our EOC, for example, how would we address the concerns of our citizens? So they're good questions, but there's a lot of tough answers that would not, frankly, make what we've got going easier. We got a plan for what's going to hit in the future, maybe in the fall and winter. If we don't have the money to do that, that would be a big mistake. So thank you for the email. Go ahead.
Chair Bernard, you have Commissioner Savas has a question.
Paul.
Yeah, I just want to comment. I did read your email, Mark, earlier this morning, and I think there are some decent ideas for consideration. My answer to you and to the folks during our listening session on Tuesday that Martha and I participated in, we don't know the scope and the scale of this problem quite yet. We don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know what, if we're going to be pulling out of this in May or in June or in July. God forbid it goes on much longer than it has to. But once we have the scope and the scale of the problem, coupled with more details from the federal assistance and any kind of state assistance, that we'll be better prepared, I think, to answer those questions. But I think that they all ought to be considered to some degree. And we're going to have to figure out how we cut our budget accordingly, because we're not sure that, obviously, if people have a difficulty paying their property taxes, we're not going to be able to be as fluid as we are today. And both the state government has to realize that employment taxes are really the state's income. And if people are being laid off, that's a huge, huge financial impact to the state. We count on our grants. Those grants provide the services, pay the employees. That stops federal grants, all of that. So the effect of that is significant. The ripple effect, we haven't even taken into full consideration yet. So thank you for your comments. And I think we're gonna have to put everything on the table at some point in time, once we have a better idea, when we get, after this issue is peaked and we can see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you. Dylan?
Okay, The next comment that we got, it's a brief one, but it did come in for the business meeting. My name is Sally Miller. I live in the Park Place neighborhood. A few months ago, we were asked what we felt about the speed limit on Holcomb. We all responded, but nothing was done to reduce the speed and therefore speeders. Could you respond to why the limit has not been lowered? Thank you.
I could respond. We have to get approval to lower the speed, and that takes a while. In some cases, months, and sometimes never, but I'm sure that if you've requested it, we're making an effort. One thing we could do is check with our traffic safety committee and see if they've seen this question or this request, and we'll get an answer for you. Thank you.
Okay, and the last question over email comes from Michael Wu of Lake Oswego. Clackamas County Commissioners, my name is Michael Wu. I am writing to the county as a Clackamas Women's Services Board member, a member of our Clackamas County community, a former Clackamas County Deputy District Attorney, past chair of the Oregon Board of Parole, and currently a lawyer in private practice. First, I wanted to express my thanks to all the commissioners for the leadership they have exhibited in this time of crisis. Second, as this crisis continues to impact all our lives, I want to highlight the very specific and severe challenges that are facing the victims and survivors of domestic abuse. Around the country and here in our own community, survivors and victims who desperately need access to shelter, programs, and services are unable to do so. An unfortunate consequence of this health crisis and resulting social isolation is that some of the most vulnerable members of our communities are having to endure stressful and dangerous living situations as they shelter in place. The services and options they would have under normal circumstances are unavailable. Many national news outlets are reporting a sharp decrease in the availability of shelter services for domestic violence survivors, with an equally sharp increase in the number of calls to domestic violence helplines. Clackamas Women's Services, in order to safeguard the health of its residents, has temporarily closed its shelter facility and relocated its residents to hotels. Additionally, the organization is providing hotel vouchering for new calls from families needing shelter and seeking to flee domestic violence. This is not an ideal solution, and it is a financial burden on the organization, but it was the only solution that would allow residents to be safe from their abusers and practice responsible social distancing. It has also had to temporarily close its Family Justice Center due to the current health crisis. I would urge the commissioners to continue to support Clackamas Women's Services as it strives to make sure that survivors and victims of domestic violence do not have to make a choice between seeking a path away from their abusers and having adequate shelter in this crisis. I would ask that the county continue to show its support and leadership in responding to domestic violence by continuing to financially support Clackamas Women's Services so that it can continue to offer and provide alternative shelter to the victims of domestic violence. Thank you, Michael Wu.
I think one of the consent items was actually in agreement with Clackamas Women's Services. And Sonia, I know, has been working with Melissa Earlbaum. Our Emergency Operations Center is working to supply vouchers along with what Clackamas Women's Services needs, and we are definitely supporting it. We understand that this crisis gets worse under these kind of circumstances. Did somebody have any other comments?
Chair Bernard, Commissioner Savas.
Paul.
Yes, thank you, Michael, for your input on that. And as Chair Bernard just stated, we did just approve a grant with Clackamas Women's Services on our consent agenda. I would like staff to at least get some numbers to see as we can monitor any kind of rise in domestic violence issues or counts. I do understand exactly what's going on currently as far as the adjustments that are being made, but as far as the increase, I think we need to keep an eye on it. And I don't know if EOC is actually looking at that metric, but I'd ask the administrator to take a look at that metric and let's keep an eye on it, please.
Yes, will do.
Go ahead.
Bernard, Commissioner Fisher.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, I really appreciate Michael's comments and all the work that Clackamas Women's Services does. I just want to remind people, anybody who's watching or anybody who may know someone who may be struggling right now, that if calling a crisis line is really hard when you're living in the same house with your abuser, and there is the possibility to text the crisis line. I was in touch with Melissa Erlbaum just this morning about a program that Britain has where there is a safe number to call that will provide assistance. And she said they're looking to roll that out here. They're not quite there, but in the meantime, texting the crisis number will get a response. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, well, we'll move on. Are there more questions?
There are no more questions, Chair Bernard. I do have one thing to add based on Administrator Schmidt's guidance. He wanted me to come in and say something about the listening sessions that we have slated. This is a good time to do it. We do have set listening sessions slated for, of course, later today at 2 p.m. Today's session is with Commissioners Humberston and Fisher. The topic is sheltering in order to stay safe and stay healthy as a community. Every person must have reliable, safe sheltering during this trying time. What are people worried about during this challenging time with shelter involving themselves, families, friends, or vulnerable populations? We also have gone ahead and set the next listening session for next Tuesday at 2 p.m. That is with Administrator Schmidt, yourself, Chair Bernard, and Nancy Bush. That is going to be covering the county's COVID-19 pandemic response and what the county could be doing better, just any ideas from residents. We do not have any set beyond that. We have slated the time for the next one as being a week from today, Thursday, at 2 p.m., but a topic is still to be determined. We will have information going out publicly about all of these things. We typically send out a media release. I'll also note that if anybody's interested in joining any of these from the public, for any of the links, there is a direct link from the BCC's webpage and from the business meeting webpage. There's an update near the top that says, please join digitally. When you go to that page, anybody can find any links at all for joining via Zoom or the phone numbers to call in. We also, of course, push out all of the information well ahead of time on our social media channels. People can go to Facebook or Nextdoor. And I might as well go ahead and plug our email subscription list because we do send out these notifications over email as well. Signing up for that is very easy on the bottom of our webpage with Get Email Updates, and we send it out to the monthly list as they occur. That is my report on the listening sessions.
Thank you very much, Dylan. Anybody want to add anything to that? All right, we'll move on to County Administrator. Good news, I'm sure.
Absolutely, Chair. Thank you very much. First, I do for the record want to state the emergency contract that was signed on Tuesday of this week, March 31st. Board, you already approved this at issues on Tuesday, March 31st, but for this business meeting record, want to remind you that there was a contract signed, which was approval of a personal services contract with Affordable Care Northwest, LLC, to provide Oregon Project Independence funded in-home care services. This contract value is $7,500. It is funded through the county's Social Service Division program agreements with the Oregon Department of Human Services. So for the record, wanted to put that for the record. Yes, some amazing things still happening in our community that I'd love to share with you today. First, the Welches Community Food Bank is giving out free food to anyone in need the last Monday of every month. That food bank is located behind the Hoodland Seniors Center. Local ham radio groups have volunteered to be on call for Meals on Wheels if that program runs low on provisions. Ham group members will find food items at their own expense and take it to the Meals on Wheels when needed. With the closure of the Milwaukee Center, our Milwaukee Meals on Wheels have added 40 new people who need food support. Our North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District share they have plenty of volunteers right now who are helping serve those who need the Meals on Wheels program. Just this morning, I heard from the general manager of the Crown Plaza Hotel in Lake Oswego, who wrote to me, "We are still open and considered an essential service. I understand the county is offering vouchers for certain populations who may need to be removed from a domestic situation. We are available to assist with hotel rooms for this and other housing needs. Please let me know if we can be of service." We will do that, and thank you to the Crown Plaza. We heard from Portland General Electric just yesterday. PGE is contributing $5,000 in community action funding to St. Vincent de Paul in Clackamas County to help alleviate, for some, strain on resources, such as helping that organization during this unprecedented time. PGE writes, "We are focused on bringing our communities as much as we can during this crisis and look forward to the day when this is behind us. We are all in this together." Our libraries are providing a variety of remote services to the public, including online book clubs and online story times. Our e-book readership is way up off the charts. Oak Lodge Library started participating in a seed library a few years ago and are continuing that program by mail, and will follow up soon with Zoom gardening classes. The North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District is putting its park maintenance facility to good use as a food storage center to support our emergency operations center. Our Housing Authority of Clackamas County have volunteered their time to hold a free food box distribution last week. Our county staff team boxed up 107 boxes of food for families in need, an increase from the normal 60 to 70 boxes of food they've given out in the past. 40 of those boxes were delivered to residents that were completely isolated. So thank you to our staff for their fantastic work supporting our community. So that is my good news. And finally, though, commissioners, I do want to say hello to Don Krupp, the previous county administrator. He is watching your meeting live right now, streaming on the internet. And while he wanted to give comments under citizen communication, he instead just texted me and asked to say to you commissioners, hello, you're doing a fantastic job. He's watching you from San Diego, California, and really appreciates the amazing leadership you're showing to our public. So thank you, Don, for the message. And that is my report today, commissioners.
Don, did you get that campaign sign up? Paul, did you want to comment on what Gary said? No? Okay. All right, we're moving on to County Administrator Communication. And Paul, you're up first.
Commissioner Communications.
Yeah, what did I say? Yes, go ahead.
After our discussion with the listening session on Tuesday, I've really been thinking a lot about in my previous life being very active in business, and when I had employees, some of the hurdles or the big national events that really created a crisis, and we had to persevere through them. The first one being the gas crunch in the late 70s and the 80s, that recession. That had a huge impact on a lot of businesses. And coming out of that, the recovery was very slow through the early 80s. I started my second business in Lane County from scratch. I slept on a friend's sofa for about 3/4 of a year, struggling to get my business off the ground there. Followed by a number of events, whether it be a snowstorm or whether it would be, the 9/11 event, big, huge setbacks that take a long time to recover. And, things like cash flow, making sure your employees are paid are really big challenges. And sometimes those setbacks, it takes them over a year to recover from those. So I can empathize with a lot of businesses to a degree, but what's different about this one is we just don't know how long it's going to last. And so I just would ask for patience, and I'm hoping that between ourselves, the counties, the cities, the federal government, our state legislators, our federal congressional folks, and the federal government, that we can put together a program our programs and figure out how we're going to deal with keeping everyone stable as best as possible. So we don't have all the answers yet, but I think from being on the ground, I can understand that. I think a lot of folks who've never operated a business, owned a business, or started a business don't understand those impacts. And I can proudly say that, you know, I always felt and took very seriously to heart that the most important thing was making sure my employees were paid, and they were paid first above all. So it's not about necessarily the business, it's about the people who make them the business that they are today. So I want to big shout out for all the people in the food supply industry. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Whether you're producing food, you're trucking food, you're stocking shelves, or you're working at the counters, it's a vital service, it's an essential service. The doctors, the nurses, the healthcare workers, for all they're doing through these tough times. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to continue doing what you're doing. It's a vital service, it's an essential service, and I thank you all for that. We will get through this. Hopefully the sooner, the better. We'll get past this crisis, but we will get through it, and we'll get through it by working together. So that's what I have for today.
Thank you, Paul. Martha, you're up next.
Well, I want to thank Commissioner Savas for his work with the other day when we were doing our listening session. It was pretty remarkable, and much like you, it brought me back to the days of when you know, our total support was a farm and a small veterinary practice with 11 employees. And when the vet practice didn't, you know, when it was a slowdown, the employees got paid first. And it was very important for us. So oftentimes I was stretched to the limit for a month because, you know, the paycheck wasn't coming in. So I really feel a lot of empathy for a lot of the smaller businesses in particular, their employees, and how they're struggling to maintain any kind of liquidity in this environment. And not only did we work on the listening session, and I know that I took notes, our staff took notes. I'm compiling a list of all the websites, including our own, that deal with it, getting it out to people so they can get the information they need. I also had an opportunity this morning with our Regional Solutions Council that I serve on as, you know, it's a gubernatorial appointment. We've been meeting weekly, and the data today is somewhat discouraging. Unemployment at this point is sky high. Banks are reporting spending just dropping down to the point where you know, the sectors are suffering. The biggest hit are government, healthcare, leisure, and hospitality. You know, there's an increase in not being able to get to the dentist, you know, to get to healthcare. It's pretty interesting out there right now. And we will be getting data sooner than later about the national unemployment for March, as well as our own unemployment rates here in Clackamas County. The other thing we did was a lightning roundtable with folks across the region in the metro area, talking about what they've been doing. Most of what we're hearing is bridge funding for, you know, helping businesses remain solvent, remain intact through this crisis. I realize that we may have limited funds to do that, but I do want to mention that the Oregon Community Foundation evidently is giving out grants, and one of those pieces is actually helping our small businesses pull together. We basically heard from the Oregon City Chamber, we heard from Hillsborough, we heard from Beaverton about all the work that their economic development folks are pulling together to try and help their businesses weather this, this piece. Oregon City in particular, I'm proud in our own county, they are pulling together a business debt relief program for small businesses for 15 or fewer employees. And what they're trying to do is reduce or eliminate any credit debt that they have or any things that they need to do to be liquid through the crisis. So in any case, we're keeping a watch on what the what this is going to mean with the federal stimulus package. I think our intent should be as a commission, and we can talk about this under issues, is to really get a handle on what that package is, what it means, and how we can leverage resources in order to really augment that package. I'm not necessarily talking about taking anything from our general fund or anything of that sort, but we can leverage sources by working with other multiple organizations for our business community. So with that, I just am glad everybody is staying home. Everybody is staying well. My dogs have actually stopped barking more because I think I'm home with them. So that's a positive thing. And okay, be safe out there.
Thank you, Martha.
Okay.
Next is Sonia.
Thanks, Chair Bernard. I want to some kudos to Martha and Paul. I listened in on the listening session and I thought it was excellent, a great forum for our citizens to let us know what's on their mind. And even if we don't have the answers, just writing down the questions is so important, given that we are connecting with our state leaders, leaders around the region, the mayors, the city councilors, our school board members, really, and our congressional delegation as well. So thought both Martha and Paul did a great job. And it's funny when you're listening in there and it's good. It's really good. I didn't feel the need to raise my hand and answer a question. I felt like what we were getting from the community was far more important than anything that we could give them right now. So I'm looking forward to this afternoon and to hear what people are thinking. Just as we were in this meeting, I got an email from a family, a mother of children who's been couch surfing from friend to friend, and now with the COVID crisis isn't able to have any place to stay and is just desperate for help. And so I forwarded that on to our emergency operation PIO email, and just doing what we need to do during this sort of command and control, give these inquiries to those that are on the ground coordinating, prioritizing, and meeting the needs in a systematic way. I've really appreciated Mary Jo, who's my policy advisor during this time. And back before COVID, Mary Jo and I would get together and talk about what are the most relevant things to share, what should we do with commissioner communication. We'd problem solve and brainstorm those things together. And this morning, I had missed a text late yesterday afternoon where she said, we really think that, Sonia, you should say something uplifting and inspiring for your commissioner of communication. And I was like, oh man, this is hard, because this is a time when we are just working hard and all hands on deck and trying to be the conduit for information and facilitating things. And we're still so much in the midst of things moving so fast that it's hard to stop and step back. But I am going to share this. Can you see it at all? I don't know if you can.
No.
Maybe right there.
Oh, yeah,
Can you see it?
yeah.
So this is me talking to my daughter, Christine, on FaceTime. And if you can see, her head's down a little bit and she's just giggling and giggling and giggling in this new mode of communication. So we used to FaceTime some before COVID, but mostly I would just go see her and we'd go out and do things, like go get a meal or go to the mall. Clackamas Town Center. Oh, Christine loves Clackamas Town Center because she can stand on the edge up on the second floor and look down and watch everybody, and she'd giggle there too. Or she would lead me over to Orange Julius because she mostly liked the samples, because she never did drink a whole Orange Julius. We'd actually buy her one. But April is personally a time of a lot of emotion for me. It was April 1st where I lost my dad, well, April 13th in 1989 where I lost my mom. And then in 1990 on April 1st, I lost my dad. And then I lost my brother the next year in April. And then I have my birthday, April 4th, and then my daughter Christine's birthday is April 11th. And as you know, Christine, every birthday is yet another reminder of how challenged her life is, and since she's still like a little baby. But I am going to try to bring some levity to this very challenging time. And I did text some of you as one evening as I was texting out and saying, hey, what are you guys doing Saturday night? It's my birthday. And Kirk has been, as you know, he's a theater producer, and he's working hard to figure out new platforms to entertain and to connect with people over media. So we're gonna have a karaoke birthday time on Saturday evening. I asked Gary if I needed to have it noticed, because I would like to invite all of my commissioners and anybody from the county who wants to come. I'm gonna post the link on my county commissioner Facebook page. You just have to sign in and you can participate. I'm gonna have the list of songs on there so you can peruse them if you'd like to sing one or do a group sing. Really want to provide an opportunity to connect and have a little bit of happiness during this time. I know the happiness is there and all the silver linings of how we're gonna be more effective and more efficient and how we're really learning to care about each other. But it's hard, I know. It's really hard. I appreciate all of you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken, you gotta unmute.
Thank you for that too. On a very different note, this is April of 2020, and it is Grange Month nationally. And I have a proclamation here that I've been asked to read on behalf of the Granges. Before I do, I'd like to point out that we have 16 active Granges in Clackamas County, and some of the things that they do are feeding the homeless. They provide personal hygiene supplies and other goods for veterans. They do road cleanup and many other activities, particularly focused in our rural communities. So they're a real key part of the rural community of Clackamas County. And so if you'll indulge me a moment here, I'd like to read this proclamation. Whereas the Grange strengthens individuals, families, and communities through grassroots action, service, education, advocacy, and agricultural awareness. And whereas the Grange has played a major role in the development of rural America during 3 centuries, advocating for legislative protection for farmers through the Granger laws in the 1800s, promoting research and education to improve agriculture through the Cooperative Extension Service and land grant colleges, and working to expand mail delivery and electricity to rural areas in the 1900s, and encouraging the expansion of broadband internet service and improvement of rural health care in the 2000s. And whereas the Grange continues today to be an active force in thousands of neighborhoods across the country, cultivating connections between people, communities, and organizations. And whereas the Grange provides leadership, motivation, and education to bring together rural and urban families and offers them opportunities for personal growth and individual expression. And whereas the Grange emphasizes civic responsibility and the involvement of people in the legislative process, cultivating connections between citizens and their government. And whereas the Grange promotes service to the local community and volunteerism to improve the quality of life and economic well-being of its members and friends. And whereas Grange members everywhere wish to celebrate and express their pride in the legacy of their highly respected organization, therefore today we do hereby proclaim April 2020 as Grange Month and further encourage the participation of all members of the community in this celebration of Grange, past and future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Later today, we are talking with our mayors and managers, Gary and I, and Nancy will be on to see if we can answer questions. All of us have emergency management plans and working together to make sure we coordinate. Again, next Tuesday, Gary and I and Nancy will be doing a listening post. One big difference between cities and counties is that we're the health authority. We're the folks that work with our various hospitals, suppliers, hotels, trying to make sure that we address the needs during crises such as this. I thought it was interesting Paul mentioned the gas shortage. You know, my family owned a gas station. and an auto repair business. And people were different back then. I mean, crashing into cars, driving over the curbs, anything to get in line to get their gas. I had the luxury of going down at night and filling my car, filling my car, to be honest. But one thing Nancy mentioned is that we did get a supply of emergency stuff. This stuff will go to our hospitals. It'll go to our first responders. It won't be available to the public. We're way short. I mean, I've been in there where they have been ordering supplies and say, yeah, come on down. And 10 minutes later, they say, we need to take this apart and inventory it. And some of it's expired and all this. It's been very challenging to get what we need. Listen to Clark County yesterday. He ordered 170,000 of something and got 400. It's just been awful in Washington State too. Hopefully they've got some stuff. Washington County, Multnomah County, myself talk every other day now. We were talking every day, and we're all very different counties. One thing we have is a lot of roads. That revenue can't be spent on just anything. It has to be spent on roads. Multnomah County has bridges, very little roads. And then Portland has all the roads. So it's very, very different. But I want to end the meeting today with, I'm going to try not to get emotional. Maybe I should have somebody else read this. So I lost two friends in the past 2 weeks. Ed Zumwalt, who was often in opposition of things I did, but he was a good friend. We worked really hard to buy Milwaukee Junior High. He was a big, strong advocate of libraries. Milwaukee was able to build a library. And so I'll miss you, Ed. And next is Bob Austin. I think we have a picture of Bob. So this is Bob and I at a NACO conference. Clackamas County at that NACO conference probably received 9 awards for the hard work we're doing. This was in Nashville, Tennessee. And Bob's was a great guy. He was a commissioner just 2 years, 2009 to 2011, I believe. His term, I believe, ended in 2010. I have a post on my Facebook page, and the comments are wonderful. Bob was kind, smart, well respected by everyone he met. Bob passed away March 29th at his home, surrounded by his family. Our thoughts and prayer for his family at this time. When we adjourn, we'll adjourn in Bob's memory. But I got to tell you one story. Long before cap and trade was even something all of us knew about, Bob brought it up at a NACO conference. And because Bob was expert in Robert's Rules of Order, he forced them to put it on the floor for a vote. And we all gathered around. And by the way, all Clackamas, all Oregon commissions supported it. Quite different today. Of course, a lot of us didn't know what it was. I'm not sure back then I understood it, but he forced it to the floor. And I had to speak in front of literally thousands of people because those meetings have a lot of people. And we walked around with signs, Oregon, California, and a lot of other things. And we had a vote and it almost passed. And that would have been NACO supporting cap and trade at the federal government level. Again, back then, I don't know that many of us knew it even what it was, but a very proud, fun meeting. It was one of the best. But thank you all very much. And I'd like to end this meeting in the honor of Bob Austin, your first, he was one of the first members of the 5-member commission. So thank you, Bob, and thank you guys for all the work you do. Thank you.